Hello, and welcome to the SMR Lifecycle panel. I'm Claire Harris, and I'm the Senior Advisor on the SMR Technology team with New Brunswick Power. I'm pleased to be the moderator today on this very important topic with two leaders I greatly admire. I'm joining you today from New Brunswick, the unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, Pescatawagati, and Mi'kmaq peoples. So our co-presenters will discuss the life cycle of nuclear energy from design, licensing, environmental review, operation, and decommissioning. This session is made possible with sponsorship from the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, so thank you. I'm going to introduce the panelists, and then I'm going to turn it over to them. I will host a question and answer period at the end, so please send me your questions via the Q&A function on your feed loop. So first, I would like to introduce President and CEO of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, CNSC, Ms. Rumina Velshi. Ms. Velshi was appointed to this role in August 2018. Ms. Velshi has had a long association with the CNSC, having been a commission member from 2011 until her appointment as President and CEO. Ms. Velshi has extensive technical, regulatory, and adjudication expertise in the energy industry. In February 2020, Ms. Velshi was appointed chairperson of the Commission on Safety Standards, CSS, established by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, for a 4-year term. Key priorities for Ms. Velshi include ensuring that the CNSC and other nuclear regulators are ready to respond to innovation and accelerating technological change, that they're collaborating with a view to eventually harmonize regulatory reviews, and are continuing to find ways to gain and enhance public trust. Small modular reactors are an innovation that Ms. Velshi and the CNSC have been preparing for through the CNSC's pre-licensing design review service for vendors of nuclear technologies, and also through collaborative work underway with the United States and United Kingdom's nuclear regulators on regulatory reviews of SMR technologies. As president of the CNSC, Ms. Velshi has welcomed the opportunity to meet the leadership from Indigenous communities and lead efforts to establish meaningful long-term relationships with Indigenous communities interested in or potentially impacted by CNSC regulated activities and facilities. Ms. Velshi very actively promotes careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, especially for young women. Ms. Velshi holds a Bachelor of Applied Science degree in Civil Engineering, a Master Engineering degree in Chemical Engineering, and a Master of Business Administration, all from the University of Toronto. Welcome, Ms. Velshi.
Okay.
Second, I would like to introduce President and CEO of the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, Ms. Laurie Swami. Ms. Swami was appointed to the role in 2016 and is responsible for implementing Canada's plan for the long-term management of used nuclear fuel. Ms. Swami previously served as Senior Vice President of Decommissioning and Nuclear Waste Management at Ontario Power Generation, or OPG. Her responsibilities included overseeing operation of OPG's nuclear waste management facilities, as well as implementing OPG's low and intermediate level nuclear waste deep geologic repository. She began her career at OPG in 1986 and held various roles with increasing responsibility in the nuclear division. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Engineering Chemistry from Queen's University and a Master of Business Administration from the Schulich School of Business. So welcome, both of you. I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Velshi, and then I'll have you turn it over to Ms. Swami, and then we'll come back for questions at the end.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is my great pleasure to join you today. And Laurie and Claire are delighted to be on the same panel as you. And many thanks to the organizers for inviting me to participate. In my remarks, I will discuss my organization's mandate and role in regulating Canada's nuclear sector, including small modular reactors or SMRs. I will also outline some of the challenges the adoption of these technologies is likely to face if a commitment to safety and meaningful engagement and relationships are not priorities at all times. The future of these technologies will depend largely on how project proponents proceed. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm Rumina Velshi, President and CEO of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, or CNSC, a role that I have held since August of 2018. The CNSC is Canada's independent nuclear regulator. We regulate all nuclear-related activities and facilities in Canada and across the full life cycle, which can be quite lengthy for some facilities. We are a world-class regulator with a robust regulatory framework, which was confirmed last year during an international peer review mission to Canada by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Organizationally, the CNSC is comprised of an independent commission, which is a quasi-judicial tribunal, and a staff body of almost 900. The commission makes independent licensing decisions for major nuclear facilities, makes regulations, and approves regulatory documents, and considers other nuclear-related matters in public proceedings. Those proceedings are open and transparent, and we encourage public participation. We even offer funding to support eligible recipients to more fully participate in the process. CNSC staff enforce compliance with the Commission's decisions and conditions and report to the Commission regularly on their work and findings. Our focus is the health, safety, and security of workers, the public, and the environment at all times and in all that we do. Combined with the experience of our predecessor, the Atomic Energy Control Board, we have licensed and regulated nuclear facilities and activities in Canada for almost 75 years. Prior to taking this role, I had limited opportunity to appreciate firsthand some of the profound challenges and obstacles that Indigenous peoples in Canada face and have faced for generations. One of the great privileges of the job that I'm in has been the chance to meet with, engage in dialogue, and learn from amazing Indigenous leaders, elders, and community members. Participating in ceremonies and experiencing Indigenous culture, practices, and beliefs has highlighted to me the importance of reconciliation in all that we do. For far too long, Indigenous perspectives, talents, and potential have been sidelined and not given an opportunity to flourish. The First Nations Power Authority is a great example of the leadership role Indigenous peoples in Canada can play in being strong stewards of the environment while managing power projects. And perhaps one of those future projects might involve a small modular reactor. For the last several years, it has been clear to us at the CNSC that SMRs are poised to potentially be the next big thing in Canada's nuclear industry. We were pleased to contribute as an objective observer to the SMR roadmap released in November 2018, as well as to the upcoming SMR action plan. In early 2016, we received our first request from a potential SMR vendor for a review of their technology under our pre-licensing vendor design review service. Our vendor design review service is a pre-licensing assessment of a proposed design's likelihood of compatibility with Canadian requirements, but it is no guarantee of approval. However, it gives a good indication of any potential fundamental barriers to licensing in Canada and provides important opportunities for both vendors and our staff. This service has been very well received by vendors, with 12 different designs currently at various phases of the process. Separate from the design reviews, we have taken steps to ensure that our regulatory framework is ready for SMRs. It sets technology-neutral expectations that are drawn from decades of experience and based on globally recognized fundamental safety objectives. We are currently reviewing it to ensure that it is ready for emerging technologies like SMRs and applies objective-based performance criteria in support of regulatory decision-making. We're also taking steps to build our human and knowledge capacities to ensure timely and predictable licensing reviews and approvals. Through our commitment to an open, inclusive, and diverse workplace, we will continue to attract and retain the best staff. The expertise and professionalism of CNSC staff has enabled the CNSC to be a leader in the global nuclear community and a champion of international collaboration for many years. That collaboration is very important because there are some long-standing concerns over the nuclear industry globally that each country must try and address appropriate to their specific context. Probably the biggest concern, and one that has persisted for many years, is over the safe long-term management of radioactive wastes. And I recognize that this issue is perhaps even more of a focus and concern for many Indigenous peoples, given the seventh generation principle. Canada has great experience with managing tailings from mining activities and the above ground management of radioactive waste of all levels. All radioactive waste from existing nuclear power plants is safely stored in waste management facilities and has been so for decades. Deep geological repositories, or DGRs, are being considered for the long-term management of radioactive waste. Earlier this year, a proposed DGR for low and intermediate level waste was cancelled after a 15-year process when two potentially impacted Indigenous communities voted almost unanimously against it. The proponent is now considering alternative locations and options. An industry-funded organization, the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, or the NWMO, has narrowed down its search for a willing and informed host community for a used fuel DGR to two study areas, and we're expecting a license application in around 2023. And my co-presenter, Laurie Swami, the president of the NWMO, will have a lot more to say on this topic during her remarks. Public concern over this issue of radioactive waste management is likely to persist if not adequately addressed, particularly as we transition to the likely next generation of new nuclear projects, including SMRs. In fact, we are already seeing significant public interest and concern over the first proposed micro-modular reactor in Canada, for which we received an application in March 2019 and began the environmental assessment in July of 2019. This speaks to the importance of building trust and the proponent's responsibility for communities' acceptance of their projects. Building trust in the CNSC as Canada's nuclear regulator is a top priority for us and is very important to maintaining legitimacy of the decisions we make. We want Indigenous communities and the public to have confidence that the best, most informed decision is made in every instance, and that our focus is on safety above all else. Our commitment is to include everyone with an interest in our processes so that all information and perspectives are considered. At base, building trust comes down to working to establish long-lasting, meaningful relationships. And there are no more important relationships in the work we do than those with Indigenous communities. The CNSC is committed to building trust and working toward reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in Canada. We are currently developing a vision and strategy to enhance how the CNSC works with Indigenous communities and contributes towards reconciliation. We have already signed terms of references with several Indigenous communities to guide our collaborative efforts and help reinforce long-lasting relationships based on open communication, listening and learning, and respect. We are revisiting the conduct of our commission proceedings and exploring the use of technology to better engage with Indigenous communities, even during these unprecedented times. And we are being innovative in our approach to engagement and consultation with Indigenous peoples, especially on the 5 active federal environmental assessments we are currently managing. Using virtual meetings and the creation of collaborative processes, we are working with communities to ensure their meaningful participation in our regulatory processes. For example, we have developed an Indigenous knowledge policy framework to help us better incorporate Indigenous knowledge into the work that we do. We are also developing a framework for conducting rights impact assessments and working with communities to ensure adequate time for engagement and participation in the decision-making process. We're exploring the creation of a public registry so that everyone has ready access to all related non-restricted information. The CNSC as regulator is working to ensure we understand the values and the concerns of those who participate in our regulatory processes and to address them as appropriate in our regulatory decision-making. But it is up to the proponents of these projects to do the very hard work of spending time and effort in communities, to know them and to be known to them in order to establish a basis of mutual understanding and the community's acceptance of their projects. Our licensing process is not the way proponents go about gaining appropriate social acceptance by those who see their interests at stake. Understanding and addressing community views and considerations is a process that proponents must invest as much effort in as they do preparing a safety case for us. Let me be very clear. The Commission works on ensuring we are a trustworthy regulator with a robust, responsive regulatory process. Proponents are responsible for the trust and acceptance a community has for a particular project. SMRs present a unique opportunity for potential partnerships between Indigenous communities and proponents, and we encourage early dialogue and the development of partnerships. As the regulator, we need to independently and objectively make the best possible decisions in the interest of safety for any proposed nuclear project, including SMRs. Both the CNSC and proponents need to be absolutely committed to including everyone with an interest in our processes and establish meaningful relationships so that all information and perspectives are considered. This will hopefully result in confidence that the best, most informed decision is taken in every instance and that approved projects are safe. We are committed to not being an unnecessary barrier to progress and innovation in Canada's nuclear sector, but we will never be a rubber stamp and we will never compromise on safety. We will continue to do all that we can to ensure we are ready to regulate these technologies, including the wastes produced, and that there is trust in us to do so effectively and objectively. It is up to the proponents to demonstrate the safety of their technologies and their commitment to safety at all times, and establish meaningful relationships and partnerships with communities and earn appropriate social acceptance. I am sure we are ready to meet our respective challenges. The future of the next big thing in nuclear will depend on it. Thank you. And so with that, let me turn the floor over to Laurie Swami, the President and CEO of the NWMO. Laurie? You're on mute.
Thank you very much. And it's wonderful to be here, albeit virtually. The pandemic may be keeping us close to home, but when it comes to nuclear power and the power of nuclear, there is nothing that will keep me from speaking about it. My name is Laurie Swami. I am the president and CEO of the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. I am also a great believer in nuclear power, of nuclear technology, and its power for good. Nuclear not only has the power to light up our cities and towns and our economies, but it has the power to convene, to bring people and communities together, and to help solve one of the biggest challenges we face today, such as climate change. First, let me acknowledge that we're gathering on many different traditional territories today. I have the pleasure of joining you from Toronto in the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. I also have the pleasure to be on this panel with my friends and colleagues, Rumina, Velshi, and Claire Harris. 3 women on one panel talking nuclear. Not the usual panel configuration at nuclear conferences. And so what a delight. You can see how our industry is evolving, and we just need to keep it going. And let me acknowledge too that the NWMO believes, as does the First Nations Power Authority, that when Indigenous communities are meaningfully engaged in the dialogue with industry and government, it will lead to better decisions and reconciliation with Indigenous people. Today, we are here to speak and learn more about the innovation and emerging new technology around small modular reactors. Although the NWMO does not advocate for one technology over another, we do have an important role to play in this new field. That is because our job at the NWMO is to safely manage and store the used fuel, regardless of whether it comes from existing reactors or new technology, in a deep geological repository, or a Dgr. You could put my slide up. My slide shows the industrial complex and underground features of our project. You can think of it as the fuel will be buried deep underneath, about the same depth as the CN Tower, with protective layers of rock and other sediment. That's the depth of the Dgr. A Dgr is the international best practice for isolation and containment of used nuclear fuel. The United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency has stated that the safest endpoint for used nuclear fuel is a Dgr. They go further to say this also includes reprocessed fuel, such as fuel that may be used in a small modular reactor. This is the only approach judged feasible for providing the necessary long-term passive protection of people and the environment. Simply put, there is no getting away from a Dgr if you are in the nuclear business. And Canada is in the nuclear business, is a powerful tool when it comes to climate change. And although I may be agnostic to new technology deployment, I am not agnostic to tackling the climate change crisis. We need to fight this with every tool we have, and the nuclear sector is well positioned to support and provide solutions. NWMO's solution to the waste issue is essential to enable innovation and expansion for SMRs or other new technology. Now let me tell you a little bit of how we are approaching our part. The NWMO was established in 2002 with the responsibility for designing and implementing collaboratively with Canadians and Indigenous people Canada's plan for the safe long-term management of used nuclear fuel. Built into our plans is the absolute requirement for engagement, consultation, and partnership. We take our time to ensure this Those community foundations are as solid as rock in which we will be storing and managing used nuclear fuel. Right now, we are actively working with communities to determine how each can participate in the project if the DGR is located in their area. A great example, which is on my slide, is Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe Nation. I met 3 high school students there. They are featured on my slide, and they created an incredibly detailed model of a potential site and the DGR. I was blown away by their work. They took the time to think about our project and did something about it. You can remove my slide now. Thank you. When talking about new nuclear deployment, I often hear, you can't build new because there's no solution for the waste. Well, I disagree with that. My organization has a legislative mandate to implement the solution for waste. And I feel confident that Canada and the NWMO is well on track. We plan to identify the site for the DGR by 2023, and we will have a used fuel facility in operation by the 2040s. I also hear, wait a minute, that's not a solution, that's just a dream, not available to the 2040s. But when I compare it to other major infrastructure projects, from inception to its actually being in service, it always takes many years of planning, working with people to obtain support, careful regulatory review and approvals before construction can begin. You can think of how long it takes to build a new water power project, for instance, upwards of 30 to 40 years. And so we are no different. We need to take the time to get this right. When we first began 18 years ago, 22 communities, including 3 in Saskatchewan, the English River First Nation, Northern Village of Pine House, and Creighton, expressed interest in learning about and potentially hosting the project. Since then, we have carefully narrowed our focus to fewer communities and are now considering 2 potential areas: Ignace and Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe First Nation in northwestern Ontario, and the municipality of South Bruce in the southern part of Ontario, which falls within the traditional territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We've worked hard to understand what is going on underground. What does that rock look like, and what exactly is happening under there? We have done work above ground, but our focus has now shifted to exploring the underground. 2 years ago, we began borehole drilling in northwestern Ontario, where we have completed drilling of 4 boreholes. Unfortunately, like so many other things, COVID has slowed our work down. But I'm very thrilled to say we will be back in the field in April to begin exploratory drilling in both of our communities. Remember, you heard it here first. You can see that this is exciting stuff for the NWMO. As I noted earlier, identifying a suitable site from a technical point of view is only part of what we do. The other part is our unique engagement process, which over the years has unearthed immense value and learnings. Since our beginning, the NWMO has been careful, thoughtful, and strategic in our journey with Indigenous people. All that we do, from our governance structures to the work in the siting communities, involves Indigenous collaboration. We listen to Indigenous elders. We formed an Elders Advisory Council at the start of this journey. Indigenous youth have since been added to this group. Last year, we played host to 45 engagement activities with Indigenous youth. We fund 18 positions within Indigenous communities, such as liaison office positions, youth, technical and administrative support. We have Indigenous representation in our senior management, on our board of directors, and our advisory council. 7% of our workforce identify as First Nation or Métis. And over 95% of our staff have received cultural awareness training. We also work to ensure that Indigenous knowledge is interwoven into our work. For example, in Northwestern Ontario, we would not have been able to even consider drilling without the support of the municipality and Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe Nation. This was established through ceremony with the First Nation. 2 years ago, we made a formal commitment to reconciliation. Last year, it was formalized through traditional ceremony. Many guests joined us. Rumina was there, as were so many supportive colleagues, to help celebrate what was an exceptional and an emotional day. At the NWMO, our reconciliation policy recognizes the importance of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, or UNDRIP for short. We are working through what UNDRIP and its definition of informed consent means for the NWMO. The communities we work with have told us it's a priority for them. So understanding its application is important for us as well. We recognize that reconciliation is a two-way dialogue. We recognize too that reconciliation and the importance of UNDRIP are both key to the NWMO's success. I am so proud to lead an organization that is committed to contribute to reconciliation in everything we do. So we listen, we learn, and we engage. Again, because our job at the NWMO is to safely manage and store the used fuel in a deep geologic repository, we are also stewards of the environment, and our project is designed to protect both people and the environment. Our scientists and engineers are studying and developing systems based both on engineered and natural barriers that work to contain and isolate the used fuel and to keep water away from it. We also recognize the value people place on water, and this is particularly true of Indigenous people. In fact, our Indigenous knowledge team has shaped our approach to water, and its members hold regular workshops about the journey of water. We developed an entire program to interweave traditional knowledge with Western science to explain our work while guided by Indigenous elders and knowledge holders. At the NWMO, as I've said, we do not take positions on power system design or advocate for new technology, but we do celebrate our shared successes and new innovations. Our plan by design is adaptable to emerging technologies, and we can accommodate new types of fuel waste in the repository if and when necessary. SMRs fall into this category. They have the potential to be a great technology solution for northern and remote Indigenous communities, which may help provide a reliable source of clean energy and many other economic and career opportunities. History suggests that implementing a first-of-a-kind major infrastructure project requires time for people to absorb and understand it. This is exactly what we have found with our project. And so our approach at the NWMO is one of science, consultation, collaboration, and patience. Just because we know the rock formations in or near northern or remote communities, or those in the traditional territory of First Nation communities in South Bruce, may be suitable for the DGR, it does not mean the people of these communities know or accept that. For any new project, we need to take the time to talk and listen to each other, learn from one another, and share knowledge, information, and enthusiasm. At the NWMO, we are watching and supporting where we can. We encourage you and other advocates to look to our engagement and consultation progress. Our work is not going unnoticed. All of us here have a great champion in Canada's Nuclear Resources Minister, Seamus O'Regan. Noting how critical nuclear power is to Canada's efforts to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, Minister O'Regan has said the NWMO is leading to ensure Canada realizes its goal. and he has commended us for being leaders in used nuclear fuel management and in public engagement. We're very pleased with that praise. He's also characterized it as open, cooperative, and science-based. And today, I am very pleased to announce that the Minister has asked NWMO to lead the development of Canada's integrated strategy for radioactive waste. We are honored to accept this great responsibility. This strategy represents a next step and builds on what we have heard from Canadians and Indigenous people and the work previously undertaken by government and industry on radioactive waste management planning. In collaboration with waste producers and owners, government, Indigenous people, and interested Canadians, we will focus on identifying gaps in current plans for the long-term management for all radioactive waste, and we will provide technical options to address these gaps. Leveraging international best practices and projects already underway in Canada, the resulting recommendation will also consider options for the number of long-term waste management facilities in Canada, as well as the staging, integration, siting, establishment, and operation of these facilities. This work will be kept separate and distinct from our ongoing work implementing Canada's plan for the long-term management of used nuclear fuel. We will continue advancing the site selection process and associated technical work, mindful of our goal to identify a single location for our project by 2023. This means that Canada will have what it needs to manage all of Canada's radioactive waste in the future. So let's unleash the power of nuclear in all of the ways I've just described, the power of its science, technology, and ability to engage and bring Canadians together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone can tell why I would be admiring these two leaders, because you really do speak with such passion, and I really enjoyed both of your presentations. I have a couple of questions, but before I do that, I better give the gamification code. The gamification code is Lifecycle 20, all one word, Lifecycle 20. So I have a couple of questions. The first is for you, Ms. Velshi. You talked about CNSC developing an Indigenous knowledge policy framework. Can you further elaborate on the policy, how it works on the ground, and the intended outcomes?
Thank you for the question, Claire, or whoever has submitted that question. Incorporating Indigenous knowledge in our decision-making is critical. And this framework that we're developing is really to guide us on how we collect that Indigenous knowledge and how that gets incorporated in how we carry out our regulatory activities and how we make decisions. So it would mean anything on how we do environmental monitoring. What are the species at risk? What are the species of concern? What is important to the Indigenous communities to make sure we're monitoring and assessing those? And it same with the traditional way of living. How are we assessing what's important? How do we know what it is? How are we building that in our regulatory framework? In how we monitoring our licensees, and how do we make regulatory decisions? So we're developing the framework to make sure we're doing it systematically with the appropriate engagement and input from the affected communities.
Thank you very much. And I had a question here for you, Ms. Swami. It's we talked about 2 areas of interest in Ontario for Dgrs. Can you repeat the information on the areas?
Certainly, I can do that, and thanks very much for that question. We had 22 communities, and slowly over time we reduced them by looking at the community and their interest in proceeding with the project. So understanding what would be involved in the siting of a large infrastructure project, as well as the physical conditions in the area. And this year we narrowed that down to 2 communities, the municipality of Ignace in northwestern Ontario. Now that's the traditional territory of the Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe First Nation, so that area, which is very close to the Manitoba border, if you will, between Ontario and Manitoba. And in southern Ontario, it's the municipality of South Bruce, and that's located in Bruce County, near the Bruce Nuclear Power Development, and that's in the traditional territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Great, thank you. I see that I have 2 minutes left, and there's one other question here, and it's for you, Ms. Swami. What options are there for job creation with Dgrs?
So there's that may take longer than 2
I
minutes.
know. I'm sorry.
So when we implement our project, today we're mainly organized with scientists, engineers, so skilled people, and we also have a lot of skills in terms of engagement and interacting with people, Indigenous people, as well as community members. Those are the skills we have today, but as we move forward, we'll be going forward with detailed designs and of course regulatory approvals, which we will anticipate some period of time. Again, a lot of engineering and science-based work, and then we'll be moving into the construction period, not until perhaps 2028 to the 2030s. We'll be into our construction phase, site preparation. And so if you think of our infrastructure project, it will be, some of it will be mining skills, so it will be underground, very similar to a mine operation. We'll have fabrication requirements for used fuel containers, so we'll be repackaging the used fuel into these containers. So there's a process or a manufacturing site that will be involved. So there's skilled labor with that as well. And so again, engineering, skilled trades, very large part of our work will be that construction phase. And then once we're finished construction and we go into operation, we'll be looking for skilled operators and maintenance staff, as well as ongoing engineering support. And so over that period of time, there's a large volume of work. We anticipate a large portion of the workforce to come from the local area, and we're very interested in making sure that that's part of the work as we go forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I do want to thank both of you for your time today, for your presentations and the additional discussion, answering the questions. So I really appreciate it. If anyone would like any further information, please visit the virtual trade show exhibitors representing utility companies, technology companies, and clean energy organizations. Immediately following this session is a panel on mining and SMRs. So thank you again for your time, and I'll see you soon.